She stood across the street with that smug, self-appointed authority only HOA presidents seemed to master, finger pointing at my chest like a courtroom judge as she barked. "Your grandfather's land is ours now." The words hit like a punch, echoing through the crisp morning air as if sheer arrogance could rewrite ownership records. My pulse spiked, my mind scrambled, because I was literally standing on the porch my grandfather built, the one I'd inherited fair and legal. Before I could respond, Evelyn Hart, the self-proclaimed queen of Pine Hollow Estates, had already pulled out her phone and dialed 911, announcing for the whole block to hear that a trespasser was on HOA property. Within minutes, my quiet morning turned into a spectacle, flashing red and blue lights painting the street, neighbors gawking through blinds, dogs barking, and kids frozen mid-bike ride. The absurdity of being accused of trespassing on my own land was so surreal I could almost laugh, but instead my stomach twisted with disbelief. I opened the wooden gate my grandfather carved with NC 1978, feeling its rough texture under my hand like a link to something solid and real. Evelyn stormed over, her voice shrill and cutting, declaring that my inherited property had been transferred to the HOA years ago through a community agreement. I stared at her, stunned. My grandfather had never mentioned any such deal, and as a former building safety inspector, I knew exactly how property transfers worked. She was lying, or worse, delusional. "What documents?" I asked, but she just smirked and waved her manicured hands. When Deputy Aaron Blake arrived, his cruiser looked like a symbol of sanity parked between Evelyn's spotless Lexus and my grandfather's old pickup. I handed over my deed, my grandfather's will, and the probate court's transfer papers, all notarized, sealed, perfect. Blake studied them quietly, then turned to Evelyn. "Ma'am, do you have any legal documents supporting your claim?" Her confidence evaporated instantly, replaced with stammering nonsense about community understanding. "And we've mowed the grass for years." The deputy's calm professionalism made her theatrics look ridiculous. "Understanding isn't ownership," he said flatly, reminding her that HOA authority only extends to legally incorporated properties. The look on her face was priceless: rage, embarrassment, and something more dangerous: calculation. She walked away pale but not defeated, and the chill in her eyes told me this wasn't over. The next morning, a wicker basket sat at my gate like some peace offering from a manipulative ex. Inside were cookies, flowers, and a typed "Welcome New HOA Member" card, plus an invoice for $75 in monthly fees covering lawn maintenance, parking enforcement, and paint approval. I laughed out loud at the audacity. They were trying to invoice me for services I'd never received, on land they didn't own. The document looked official, logos, legal phrasing, but had no legal weight. It was a psychological trick, meant to create compliance through presentation. Martha Green, my neighbor, was pruning her roses nearby, so I asked directly, "Has this property ever been under HOA care?" She wiped her hands, squinting in the sunlight. "Not once in 30 years, she said firmly. "Your grandfather hated HOAs. He hired private contractors for everything: trash, snow removal, repairs. He wanted independence." That sounded exactly like him. Grandfather was meticulous, deliberate, and allergic to legal entanglement. I spent the morning walking the boundary, taking notes like I used to during inspections, measuring service lines, observing where HOA maintenance stopped. The trash pickup zone ended 3 fence posts before my gate. Streetlights stopped there too. Even the sidewalk's edge changed: HOA concrete, then private stonework. Every boundary screamed jurisdiction cutoff. Later that afternoon, a certified letter arrived from an HOA lawyer threatening to place a lien on my property for unpaid fees. My heart sank before fury replaced it. The letter looked polished, but the citations inside actually supported my ownership. Either the lawyer hadn't done their homework or Evelyn had lied to them outright. She was escalating, first social pressure, now legal intimidation. This wasn't confusion, it was strategy. The social atmosphere turned sour overnight. Neighbors who used to wave now avoided eye contact. One woman nervously approached me by the mailbox and asked, "Are you really suing the HOA? Evelyn said you're trying to ruin property values with loopholes." My jaw clenched. Evelyn was spreading propaganda, painting me as a threat to community harmony. She'd weaponized gossip to isolate me. Different lies circulated for different groups. Parents were told I'd block the walking trail. Retirees heard I'd charge access fees, and pet owners were told I'd fence off the dog path. It was sophisticated manipulation, a smear campaign designed to turn public opinion into her weapon. The irony was brutal. My grandfather had been the most helpful neighbor in the area, the man who fixed generators during storms, lent tools, even saved Evelyn's basement from flooding in 2003. When Martha brought out an old folder of photographs, grandfather knee-deep in water helping Evelyn salvage furniture, the betrayal hit hard. How could someone repay kindness with deceit? Walter Hayes, an old electrician who'd worked with my grandfather, joined us quietly. "Your grandfather prepared for this kind of thing," he said cryptically, eyeing the old oak tree marking the property line. I examined the trunk, remembering my grandfather's words. "This tree marks where community stops and family begins." Embedded deep in the bark was a rusted survey nail, and hanging from it, hidden under layers of growth, was a small brass key. My pulse quickened. Walter smiled faintly, like a man watching prophecy unfold. "He believed truth should always be documented," he said. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I turned the key over in my palm, wondering what secret it might unlock. Maybe an old lockbox. Maybe records Evelyn never knew existed. Meanwhile, the social pressure mounted. Posts appeared online claiming I was destroying neighborhood unity. The hardware store refused service under a new community policy. Local landscapers suddenly couldn't fit me in. Evelyn was turning private businesses into pawns through intimidation and false authority. I started compiling evidence, recording conversations, photographing boundaries, documenting every incident. I contacted the county recorder's office and requested the full subdivision map and plat history. The results confirmed what I already knew. My parcel had never been annexed by the HOA. It existed as a legally distinct lot predating the HOA's incorporation. My grandfather had explicitly chosen that lot for its independence. Armed with this proof, I went to the county office in person, key still in pocket, to check archived files. The clerk, an older man named Reggie, recognized my family name. "Your grandfather? Yeah, he was thorough. Kept an affidavit on file about boundary disputes." My heart skipped. Reggie disappeared into the records room and returned with a slim, dusty lockbox, the kind that looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. The brass key fit perfectly. Inside were copies of the original 1978 deed, a notarized statement from the developer confirming the parcel's exclusion from the HOA, and correspondence proving my grandfather had refused every annexation attempt. He'd anticipated exactly this kind of future conflict and prepared airtight documentation to protect his descendants. I scanned the documents, uploaded them, and sent digital copies to the county, ensuring they were permanently archived. Then I filed a cease and desist letter through my attorney, attaching all evidence, including the HOA's illegal billing, false police call transcript, and property surveys. Within a week, the county issued a formal notice confirming my land was not under HOA jurisdiction. Evelyn's lien notice was voided, and Deputy Blake paid her another visit. Neighbors watched as she received an official warning for harassment and defamation. Her empire of intimidation collapsed overnight. The very people she'd turned against me now whispered apologies. The woman who'd accused me of hurting property values brought cookies. Even the hardware store owner sheepishly lifted the HOA members' only rule. But Evelyn wasn't done. She tried one final gambit, claiming the old walking trail that crossed my side yard was public easement. But the county's survey maps showed no such path. It was private land all the way. When I presented the official plat record at the next HOA meeting, silence filled the room. Her authority evaporated under the weight of my grandfather's foresight and hard evidence. The oak tree stood tall outside, the same one that had marked the border for generations. Its bark held the story of decades, of independence, respect, and quiet strength. I touched it again, tracing the scar where the key had hung, and felt like I was touching his hand through time. The brass key wasn't just for the lockbox. It was a symbol of preparation, proof that truth survives even when liars shout loudest. That night, I sat on the porch with my grandfather's coffee mug beside me, the same one that had gone cold the day this madness began. The neighborhood had fallen silent, no flashing lights, no accusing voices, just crickets and the whisper of pine trees. I realized Evelyn had tried to weaponize community, but she never understood it. Community isn't control, it's respect. And respect can't be forced. It's earned like trust, like land, like legacy. As dawn broke, I sipped my coffee, watching sunlight filter through the oak leaves that had guarded our boundary for nearly half a century. My grandfather had always said, "Good fences make good neighbors, but clear deeds make peaceful mornings." Turns out, he was right about both.